Welcome to Structo's Meet the Writer series. This is a short form interview series where we talk to the writers and poets who have contributed work to Structo 20, which is coming out, or may have even come out by the time this video comes out. Today we're talking to Claire Booker. Hi, Claire.
Hello there, Ewan.
So you've agreed to read one of the two poems you have in the issue to start off this, so I'll hand over to you.
Okay, well, firstly, thanks so much for taking my work. It's always a pleasure to be in Structo. So, and this is one of the two poems, and it's about a trip back to my home village, which is in rural Surrey, and it's called The Path Home. Autumn has a way with light, prolonging space, making horizons sail achingly close. A landslip of sights greets me from the top of Folly Hill. Georgian brickwork, the castle keep, clouds pinned by steeples. The gasworks, an ugly thumbprint. Behind me, bracken sprawls its cinnabar pelt, still warm with the possibility of adders. It's a long walk along flint walls to the swallow holes where we banjaxed our sled one winter stiff Christmas, planted a tree from a pip, glimpsed the mythic stoat. When the school bell tolls, it's calling other lives. The weather vanes still undecided, north, east, south and west. Who is the boy that I love best? Somewhere I'll find an oak that keeps the hoop of my arms in its memory. A girl on the brink, practicing al fresco kissing on one such flimsy day.
Thanks, Claire. So you mentioned we have two poems in this issue, in issue 20. Which is a nice reflection. When we last published you back in issue 15, we also had two poems. It's been a while, and I think like before we started recording, we were trying to figure out when that was.
Yes.
And we know it was in a bookshop in Oxford, which was the Albion Beatnik. It's and in a sense, this little interview series is an attempt to capture some of that feeling of being in a bookshop in Oxford or wherever, and just chatting with people in a very relaxed way, in a very friendly space. So thanks for agreeing to have a chat.
Well, it's great. It feels very friendly.
Yeah, good.
Space.
So I mentioned the two pieces. The other one is when we were deciding which one you're going to read. The other one really has a really nice visual element, so we decided to save that one for the printed page.
Yes.
Can you say a little about the genesis of your poetry work as compared to, you're also a playwright?
That's right, yeah.
When inspiration strikes, do they strike in very different ways when it comes to the different types of work you do?
I think so, yes. A poem really is a moment almost in time. It's something that you feel you could almost, it has a gem-like quality, if you like, that it sort of has many facets of reality, but in a kind of compressed and hopefully rich way. When you come to look at an idea, you think, will it work that way? Or is it more about character, story? Of course, you can have character and story in poems, but is it more linear? Is it something that needs to pan out, change, move? Or is it something that can be really held in your hand? With the poem that I've just read, that felt like, I mean, you could have, a girl going home, she meets somebody that she hasn't seen for many years, they reminisce about, banjaxing the sled or whatever, but it just felt like, when you try and recapture your childhood or your teenhood, it's that essence, that essence of sort of, so I think they're very different media. And I'm inclining more towards poetry these days, actually, because it just gives such a sort of instant hit when you get it right. I mean, writing a play, and even worse, writing a novel, you know, is a commitment of at least months and quite probably years. And a poem, although you work it and rework it, it's something that, you know, the essence, the core of it may be written in, you know, a few hours or less.
Do you remember when you first started writing poetry?
Yeah, I was little. I was at school. You know, it was one of those things you were given. I think my first love was drama and theatre because of that magic sort of element. You know, there's just a little physical space, and suddenly, you know, you're in the Sahara, or you're, you know, in the middle of the witch trials or something. But I've always written poetry on and off through my life, and often it was actually at key moments when someone who I cared about died, or something very exciting happened. I think poetry is often called upon. You know, traditionally in the non-poetry world, you know, at funerals and weddings, people have poetry when they might not do anything with poetry at any other time in their life. So I think it has that heightened quality.
And then did you remember when you began taking it seriously enough to compile your poems or to send them out?
Yes, that was probably, well, to send them out probably is 10 years ago now, actually. But to start thinking of a pamphlet or collection was probably, well, my existing pamphlet. Later there will be postcards. Exhibit 1
Nice.
is that came out in 2016. So yes, I think it's a very different experience having 1 or 2 poems that work well in a literary magazine and trying to build a book.
Right.
And I found that quite challenging to so the poems speak to each other, so that there is I think there's quite a fashion, I might say, for themed pamphlets and collections now. And I think my mind doesn't quite work always in that way. I write a poem because it's got to be written, rather than I need a 5th poem about bees.
Yeah, same here, really. We've never had themed issues for a similar reason, really, but from the reader's point of view, because if I pick up a magazine, I don't know if I want to read about bees, or I kind of like to be surprised for that same reason. Yes. You mentioned your pamphlet. You also have, and I'm just scanning down the bio we have in the new issue, another forthcoming title from you, The Bone That Sang. Can you say, and is that another pamphlet, or is that a collection?
It's another pamphlet.
Right.
Both pamphlets are as big as they can be.
I was going to ask, that could be...
pamphlets. You get your money's worth. So they're all sort of, it's a 35-page pamphlet. And it has a sort of, not a theme as such, but it is about, you might say, injustice in the world, but also loss. I mean, there are some funny poems in it too, because I do humour as well. But the title poem was actually published in Magma recently, their Resistencia issue, which was about South America. And actually, the poem was inspired by the Grimm's fairy tale about 2 brothers who one of them kills the other in order to gain the kingdom, the usual story. And then eventually the bones of the dead brother are picked up and turned into a flute, and they start playing the music that says, I was murdered by my brother. So it's really looking at how we often don't choose to look at injustice in the world, but eventually it kind of sings to us through the bone. But as I say, it's not just about sort of political or social issues. It's also some of them about my parents, you know, the usual thing, experiences that I've had abroad. Quite a few of my poems seem to be written in Spain for some reason. I tend to get inspired when I'm in Spain. So it is a mixture, but there's quite a lot of hard-hitting poems as well as some of the sort of softer.
Nice.
Elements.
So I was about to say that it's perhaps a timely thing, but to be honest, it always will be timely, I suspect. Perhaps more now so than usual in a way.
Yes, well, you know, human beings like to cover things with a bit of soil and go away and hope, you know, it sorts itself out. And so, yes, I mean, with Black Lives Matter, I mean, a whole range of things going on at the moment that would, I suppose it's about maybe really trying to understand what another human being is. I mean, poetry often does that.
Right.
What is it like to be somebody in this situation? You can't do more than that as a poet. I mean, I don't think poetry actually kind of it is a revolutionary sort of art form compared to, say, I mean, journalistic writing can make a difference, you know, but I think with poetry, it's the soft power, if you like.
Yeah.
It can make you think, do you know what, this is not great. And then you read more about it in the papers, and then you start doing something about it.
It can kind of address some of the emotional issues that perhaps the purely factual struggles with, or helps you understand emotions in that sense sometimes.
I think you're right, and I think actually underneath most of our actions lie emotions. So, yeah.
I find fiction very helpful for that as well, in terms of, you know, almost a self-help way, you know, turning to Tove Jansson when you just need to be calmed down, for example.
Yes.
Yeah. When is the pamphlet coming out?
It's probably in the next 2 to 3 months. It's this side of Christmas for sure. Yes. Indigo Dreams Press. So check it out on their website or my website.
One for the Christmas list.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Got to plug things whenever possible.
Yes, plug.
So how are you finding your writing life these days? It's a very different situation than normal. Is that something that you're finding conducive to writing, or are you distracted by real life intruding?
Actually, to begin with, it was distracting, but of course, I'm doing less than I did. you know, I'm not going up to London to go to see a show, or you know, only seeing local friends really. So there is more time. So I've got into a little bit of a routine, and I've got a few local poet friends, and we kind of meet for workshops, sitting on benches in various parts of Brighton. I have written 1 or 2 lockdown poems, but actually very few, interestingly enough. It's almost like I'm sick of it, so I don't really want to have more of it in my head. But I think it is certainly a chance to become more in contact with your locality, here right on the South Downs by the sea. And I think I've always been a bit of a nature poet, and I think I'm becoming a little bit more so as a result. As my poem, you know, that's in Breaking Out is a little like that. So, do you want to sit and write a poem, or do you want to be out there in glorious nature?
So perhaps there'll be some filtering happening over the months to come, and look forward to seeing what comes of that.
Oh yes, filtering, that's so important, isn't it?
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. It's been really nice to catch up, as I say, since whenever issue 15 was.
I know, it's nearly 4 years ago, but it's super to see you. It's really nice. And
we used to call ourselves a biannual, but whatever it is now.
Yes, whatever it is, but it happens, and it's lovely.
In the end.